Okay, so this is my third video on the benefits of a plant-based diet. The first one hit on the health benefits of a plant-based diet. The second one, hit on the environmental benefits of a plant-based diet. So if you haven't seen those, and if you want to see those, I will put a link for both in the description below. And this one's going to hit on factory farming, so plant-based and the fight against factory farming. So yeah, I found this one pretty interesting because it kind of still hits on some of the environmental benefits of a plant-based diet. They kind of coincide, but I think this one definitely has more of a focus on the animal rights and kind of the animal treatment portion of it. So yeah, let's get into it. And first, I'll start off with a pretty good quote by Paul McCartney. If slaughterhouses had glass walls, everyone would be a vegetarian. And I think that this is an awesome quote just because I think it's true. I mean, for people who have seen videos of slaughterhouses, that you see how it's kind of it's pretty inhumane and it's unethical, it's immoral. And they just kill the animals. I mean, they just raise them, whether it be they take the calves from their mothers. It's just it's devastating. So the effects of factory farming, the amount of animal abuse that takes place in factory farming is unethical. Obviously, any animal abuse is unethical. And factory farming produces 99% of the meat that is consumed in the United States, which is just a huge number. So it shows that a lot of people are dependent on factory farming, and it's the only way they really know how to get their meat, since there's not really many other options. And this causes a concern for factory farming. The factory farming causes a concern for not only the environment, but also for the animal rights. And animal agriculture, factory farming, accounts for a huge bulk of devastation in the world. 1/3 of the whole world's water consumption is due to raising animals, animal agriculture, and about 1/4 of the whole world's greenhouse gas emissions come from animal agriculture, and about 30% of the whole Earth's surface is used for this. And again, I'll have all the citations, the sources. I put them at the end of the video. They'll be in the end of the slideshow. So let's get on to the next one. And some more effects of factory farming. It's pretty easy to see that factory farming is a huge contributor to the world's environmental problems. One of the biggest impacts that it has is that factory farming is the top cause of deforestation in the Amazon, and this is one of the major contributors to global warming, and it is also one of the top leaders in global drought and desertification, which is when fertile land becomes desert land and it's not fertile anymore. You can't plant. And take almost any environmental problem throughout the world, and one of the top reasons will be because of animal agriculture and animal rights violations. If we want to not only save the environment but also stop animal abuse, then the factory farming system has to change. And the violations on animal rights, it's a huge issue. And as most people are aware, the dairy and meat industry, they're immoral with the way they treat animals, and some of these include grinding and debeaking chickens, having pigs live in dark and cramped cages, and like I said earlier, separating calves from their mothers. And 80% of America's antibiotics are not taken by humans, but are rather pumped into animals at a huge rate, which is crazy. So a lot of the antibiotics that we actually get, a lot of the antibiotics that are produced are actually being given to these animals. So pasture-raised meat, one alternative is to instead of performing factory farming, is to have all meat entirely produced on like wildlife, like on pastures. So they live free, and it still has some ethical concerns, but it would 100% minimize animal suffering. It is easy for a cow to have a great life out in the wild, but that can't really be said for a cow that's stuck in a cage, that only lives in a cage for its life, then gets killed. And while pasture-raised meat would help with animal rights, there's little to no benefit for the environment. And for water consumption, a pound of meat raised on a pasture requires about 35% more water than a pound of meat that's factory farmed, which is obviously that's not good for water consumption. And continuing from the last slide, 1/3 of Earth's water is already used for livestock, and with the switch to the pasture-raised meat, the global water demand would go up by over 10%. So, obviously this is not good for countries who are already suffering from dehydration and when they're in a drought and they don't have water. And one of the biggest arguments against pasture-raised meat is that cattle that was grass-fed would use about 30% more land than cattle which is grain-fed. Obviously because, grass, you need more grass, and, grain's kind of more condensed. And this will cause a huge need for more land, and it will cause massive levels of deforestation. And the amount of deforestation that will take place, it's not for a good option for the environment. And, you may ask yourself, well, how much land is really needed? A land mass the size of the Amazon would be needed to make this happen. So pretty big chunk of land. And how would veganism affect factory farming? A vegan world, fully vegan world, fully plant-based. Let's take that. Let's play with that. It would basically solve all of the world's environmental and ethical problems that have been caused by factory farming and animal agriculture. There would be no more animals that are abused or killed due to factory farming or animal agriculture. Animal agriculture would no longer pollute Earth's airways and waterways. These animal products would no longer hurt human health because some of them, a good bit of them, are actually relatively unhealthy. The greenhouse gases produced from factory farming would also disappear, and the amount of water and land consumption will go down, so more land could go back into making forests, prairies, kind of just back to wildlife. And also the water consumption would go down, so there'd be more water, which would help places that need water. And the benefits of a 100% vegan society: nearly 30% of Earth's land could be converted back to prairies and forests, and obviously this would be great for wildlife. Humanity's impact on climate change would be reduced by almost 1/5, and this would save billions of dollars and millions of lives. The food waste of animal feed would be reduced by consuming this product directly, which, so whether it be grain or whatever you feed whatever in the animal feed, this could just be directly consumed by humans, so there wouldn't be as much as a waste. And, this would maximize the efficiency in a time where, the demand for food is growing. And the mass suffering of billions of animals locked in factory farming and cages and all that type of stuff due to animal agriculture would finally end. And the negative, if we were to go fully vegan, fully plant-based, the estimated unemployment worldwide if the entire planet went vegan would be 1.3 billion jobs. And this is huge. It's 17% of all humans alive today. And the solutions. There are 4 major factors that would minimize the impact of the job losses. And the first is developing countries are already in the middle of industrializing, modernizing, and urbanizing their economies. This means that they are already losing employment, so there's no guarantee that these livestock farmers would even be able to find work if animal agriculture was their only trade anyway, because it's kind of it's shifting. And as the demand for vegan food goes up, there would be a huge demand for produce farmers, and this would obviously create more jobs. Obviously, wouldn't create the amount of jobs that would be lost, but it's a start. And climate change costs the world nearly $700 billion per year. And at this point, and with the elimination of livestock emissions, the economic costs would be reduced. And again, this wouldn't help, all the 1.3 billion people, but it's kind of, the money can go back into the economy. Some of the money can go, whether it be, helping the people who would be unemployed by this. So it's definitely help. And if let's say the transition were to take until 2040, so about another 20 years, it would leave a lot of time to work out the issue in the economy. And while it can ease some worries, it won't completely solve the problem. And the conclusion, that I at least got from it, I pulled from it, is each of the three, factory farming, pasture raising, meats, and veganism, they all come with outcomes that are, unexpected and undesirable. And, it's easy to say, it's obvious to say that there's no perfect system that faces no problems. So there's no system, there's none of these, not one of these systems has no problems and is flawless. But it can also be noted that worldwide veganism, massive unemployment will be created, but only for the short term. And factory farming and pasture raised meat unemployment would occur longer term and be more of a long term thing, not short term like the veganism would be. And here's a picture. So it shows, obviously X's are bad, check marks are good. So for factory farming, there's no animal rights, doesn't help climate change, land use is bad, water use is bad, but unemployment's okay. For pasture raising, animal rights is good because they are able to live their lives, they're able to roam free. Climate doesn't really help climate change, doesn't help land use, doesn't help water use. If anything, it's even worse than factory farming for land use and water use. But again, unemployment. There's a lot of agricultural, animal agriculture farmers that are still would still be employed. And for veganism, animal rights, no animals are dying or being abused, so that's a check. That's good. It would help climate change. You wouldn't need to use all the land that is required for factory farming, for raising animals, and same thing with water. There'd be less water consumed. But again, unemployment in the short term would not look too good. And here's my sources. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you.